This is the Aramark Commercial Motor Vehicle Policy. Aramark is committed to promoting the safe, proper, and professional operation of all commercial motor vehicles which Aramark owns, leases, or otherwise operates. Aramark is also committed to employing only the most qualified drivers of commercial motor vehicles. To achieve these aims, Aramark has implemented this policy. This policy applies to all applicants for positions which require operation of a commercial motor vehicle and to employees or third parties who, in the course of their employment or business or contractual relationship with Aramark, operate a CMV owned, leased, or rented by or on behalf of Aramark. This policy does not apply to drivers of non-commercial motor vehicles. More stringent procedures may be implemented at the local level as circumstances warrant. Any deviations from this policy must be approved by the Corporate Fleet Services Department prior to implementation. In no event may this policy be made less rigorous or stringent. The policy will be executed by following the procedures set forth herein and other procedures established by Aramark from time to time. Records of compliance with this policy will be retained and required herein. This policy may be amended, modified, and supplemented from time to time in Aramark's sole discretion. Note, this policy highlights most but not all of the requirements for authorized drivers of commercial motor vehicles pursuant to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations and state, provincial, or local laws and ordinances. Authorized drivers of Aramark commercial motor vehicles are required to comply with and will be held accountable for all applicable regulations, whether or not specifically stated herein. Further information or questions regarding these regulations may be obtained from the Fleet Services Department. Next page. Next page. Next page. 1. Definitions. The following definitions apply. The use of the words include, includes, or including all mean including but not limited to. AAMV Net Code Directory, ACD codes. AAMV ANET Code Directory, ACD codes. States transmit their uniform code data over AAMV ANET, the communication network operated by the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators. The ACD is the code table used to transmit or exchange driver history information, including conviction, offenses, actions, and withdrawals between states. Aramark Motor Vehicles includes all motor vehicles which are owned, leased, or rented by or on behalf of Aramark, its employees, clients, or vendors, and which are available to Aramark employees for business or personal use. This includes, but is not limited to, those motor vehicles commonly referred to as company cars, fleet vehicles, commercial motor vehicles, as defined in this policy, and DOT-regulated vehicles. Authorized drivers include all persons, including employees, client employees, and vendors, who are authorized to drive an Aramark motor vehicle for business or personal use. Commercial driver's license is a license issued by a state or other jurisdiction in accordance with the standards contained in the safety regulations prescribed by the DOT to an individual, which authorizes the individual to operate a class of CMV. Persons who operate a CMV may not have more than one driver's license at any time. A CDL is required for authorized drivers of a CMV or combination of motor vehicles used in commerce to transport passengers or property if the motor vehicle has a gross combination weight rating of 26,001 pounds or more, inclusive of a towed unit with a gross vehicle weight rating of 10,001 pounds or more, or has a gross vehicle weight rating of 26,001 pounds or more, or is designed to transport 16 or more passengers, including the driver, or is of any size and is used in the transportation of hazardous materials as defined by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. Next slide. Commercial motor vehicle is any self-propelled or towed motor vehicle used on a highway in interstate commerce to transport passengers or property when the vehicle has a gross vehicle weight rating or gross combination weight rating or gross vehicle weight or gross combination weight of 10,001 pounds or more, whichever is greater. Is designed or used to transport more than 8 passengers, including the driver, for compensation, or is designed or used to transport more than 15 passengers, including the driver, and is not used to transport passengers for compensation, or is used in transporting hazardous materials and requires placarding. CMVs are regulated in the United States by U.S. Department of Transportation. Aramark will apply the same definition to vehicles operating in intrastate commerce. Therefore, this policy and all procedures outlined apply to all vehicles meeting the definition of a CMV in both interstate and intrastate commerce. DOT is the abbreviation for the United States Department of Transportation. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration of the DOT promulgates safety regulations for authorized drivers of commercial motor vehicles. The application of those regulations to authorized drivers of Aramark commercial vehicles is provided in the implementation procedures for authorized drivers of commercial vehicles. Fleet vehicles, company trucks, or vans include Aramark motor vehicles that are assigned to a specific location, facility, component, or market center for business use by authorized employees at that location. The location manager is accountable for the fleet vehicles and may assign use of a fleet vehicle as follows: to a particular route regardless of driver, to a particular driver based upon the size of his or her assigned route, or to a particular job based upon the specifications of the vehicle that may be needed for a particular purpose. SMCSR is the abbreviation for the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, which are promulgated by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration of the DOT. These regulations govern the practices which must be followed by authorized drivers of CMVs. Material includes a substance or material, including a hazardous substance, which has been determined by the Secretary of, next slide, Transportation to be capable of posing an unreasonable risk to health, safety, or property when transported in commerce, and which has been so designated. The term includes hazardous substances, hazardous waste, marine pollutants, elevated temperature materials, materials designated as hazardous in the hazardous materials table of the FMCSR, and materials that meet the defining criteria for hazard classes and divisions. Motor vehicle record is a state agency recording of a person's driving history, which includes, among other items, confirmation that a driver holds a valid driver's license in the jurisdiction, a list of motor vehicle violations attributed to the driver or collisions that a driver was involved with, and other driving-related information. All authorized drivers are required to undergo a motor vehicle record check prior to obtaining authorization to operate an Aramark motor vehicle or a personal vehicle for business purposes. MVRs are required to be checked annually on every CMV driver. Preventable collision is defined as a collision where it is determined that the driver's actions or inactions put the driver into a position where he or she became involved in a collision. Safety-sensitive functions include all time that a driver is at work or is required to be ready to work until relieved from all responsibility, including but not limited to at a location awaiting dispatch, inspecting or servicing equipment at the controls of a CMV in operation, or in or around a CMV, loading or unloading a CMV, or repairing, obtaining assistance, or remaining with a disabled CMV. Serious driving infractions include but are not limited to the following: any suspension of driving privileges, any driving under suspension violations, suspension of driving privileges, driving while under suspension, driving under the influence, fleeing or eluding police, leaving the scene of a motor vehicle collision, felony only, reckless driving or careless driving charged as a felony only, homicide by vehicle or vehicular manslaughter, speeding violation of 30 or more miles per hour over the speed limit. Suspension of driving privileges includes any suspension, revocation, or any other loss of a driver's operating privileges as a result of motor vehicle violations. This also includes any administrative suspensions such as failure to pay child support and failure to appear. Any suspension shall result in the immediate removal of a driver from a driving position. Next slide.